This is an op ed from The Hill, and I think that this is an important conversation to have right now, especially with the jobs market and everything that's going on with the economy, and specifically speaking about young men because they overwhelmingly voted for Trump. And now they are in a position where there are no jobs available. But let's talk about this real quick. It says from breadwinners to bystanders, the death spiral of the American working man. Now, we have been talking about needs. We've been talking about these men falling out of the workforce. And I believe right now it is being exacerbated by the current economic climate and the current labor market. All right, so let's see what John McGillen has to say on this. Something strange is happening in America's job market. For the first time in living memory, young men with college degrees are struggling to find work, while women with the same qualifications are thriving. What once seemed fixed, the old order of men filling the top jobs and women fighting for entry, has been flipped, and the consequences could be severe. The numbers paint a disturbing picture. Men with college degrees are now more likely to be out of work than women with the same education. To compound matters, men's pay has barely budged since 1979, whereas women's earnings keep climbing. More worrying still, a growing number of men are no longer looking for work at all. They have simply checked out. I am going to come back and address all of this. This isn't the ebb and flow of a normal cycle. In truth, it looks more like a structural shift. The industries that once absorbed educated men, technology, finance, law, consulting, are no longer safe havens. Tech firms are cutting staff. Startups are sputtering. Artificial intelligence is eliminating entry level jobs faster than new ones appear. White collar ladders that once led to stability are now missing rungs or disappearing altogether. The opposite is happening in sectors long seen as female domains. Healthcare, education, and social services are adding jobs at breakneck pace as the population ages. America needs more nurses, teachers, and caregivers every year. These are professions with real future demand, yet men remain mostly absent. They linger at the margins, clinging to shrinking fields while growth passes them by. This matters far beyond the job boards. When young men cannot find meaningful work, the effects ripple outwards. Families weaken, communities fracture, depression, drug abuse, and social withdrawal rise. Marriage rates drop because men cannot afford the stability once expected of them. Birth rates sink as couples delay children under financial strain, a slow suffocation of society itself. The economy too suffers. If half the workforce fails to adapt to where jobs exist, the mismatch will create permanent dysfunction. That is such a softball way of typing that up. If men fail to adapt to the current labor force, then the economy will suffer because these men are not working. They're not going where the jobs are. They just are staying out. Artist says some industries will be desperate for workers while others sit crowded with idle men. Growth will sputter, productivity will sag, a two-speed society will emerge, women advancing into the expanding professions of care and communication, men languishing in declining sectors, or falling out of the labor force altogether. This failure to adapt to where society is pushing them is harming them, and this language that they use it's so unproductive because it doesn't say push them to where they're supposed to go. It's just like, yeah, they're just going to sit here idly by. All right, I said I'm not going to do this. Let me keep reading. The road ahead looks grim unless something changes. The future will be built on jobs that demand patience, empathy, and steady communication. Teaching, nursing, counseling, and care work form the backbone of any strong society. They keep communities together. They help the sick recover and guide children into adulthood. They carry respect, decent pay, and growth demand, yet men hold back. Pride and habit stand in the way. Nursing carries a feminine label. I'll admit it myself. When I hear the word nurse, my mind still drifts to a woman in scrubs. The teaching of small children is dismissed as women's work. That instinct feels natural, but it is a learned reflex. It blinds men to jobs that could offer real stability and meaning, and it can't go on. The shortages grow deeper, the gaps wider, and the cost heavier. This requires a radical rethink. No lectures, no guilt trips, just a cultural reset. Men should feel pride in classrooms and hospital wards, the same pride they feel on construction sites or in boardrooms. These jobs build the future as surely as bridges or businesses. Without men stepping forward, the nation grows weaker and poorer and more unprepared. The stakes are enormous. If men cannot find their footing in the economy of tomorrow, America will face not only labor shortages, but a fracture along gender lines. The divide will not be between rich or poor alone, or black and white, but between men and women. Women, by instinct and tradition, tend to marry up, to seek partners with stability and status. But what happens when millions of men cannot offer either? The country is already seeing the rise of sexless young men drifting without purpose, cut off from work, family, and the prospect of building a future. Whole swaths of men risk becoming spectators to prosperity, and history leaves little comfort here when large groups of disaffected men gather at the margins. Frustration festers into something darker: resentment, rage, and revolt. America has a choice. It must recognize this great gender flip for what it is, a slow motion crisis, and act while there is still time. That means breaking down the cultural barriers that keep men from entering growing fields. It means raising wages and status in professions that need workers most. It means preparing boys from an early age for a world where communication and care matter as much as coding and capital. That does not mean treating boys like girls, but equipping them with the full range of skills needed to lead families and hold their own in tomorrow's economy. Or we could do nothing. We could pretend the market will sort itself out, that men will adapt on their own, that things will somehow balance. But inaction carries a heavy price if men continue to fall behind. The consequences will reach every corner of society. The crisis will not stay confined to the job market. It will spread to the school, to the street, to the very nation, the very spirit of the nation. Richard M. Reeves, in his book, Of Boys and Men, were talking about the fact that men need to go into these helping fields, education, healthcare, administration, and that type of thing. These are the professions that are typically female-coded professions. But when I was reading this book, I was like, there's no way they're going to do that, because typically these female-coded professions are lower paying. And so just like this man says right here, it means raising wages and status in the professions that need workers most. They're going to have to start paying everybody across the board more money. And so that means that they are now going to have to pay women more, because those professions are typically where women are working. But if they want to bring men in there, they're going to have to pay more money. So this means that they are kind of a backdoor way of addressing the sexism and misogyny that has been in the labor force already. The way many of these people talk about the sexless young men drifting without purpose, what are we supposed to do about this? How is everybody in society supposed to help them find a focus so that they can get them some sex and find them a job that they want? Back in the day when women were fighting for jobs, when non-white people were fighting for jobs, they were fighting these jobs because sexism and racism is baked into the cake of America. When disabled people were searching for jobs, when older folks were getting pushed out of jobs, it's because discrimination is baked into the cake. What is keeping men out of the workforce? Nothing, except the fact that they don't want to go into these fields that are open because they are female coded, because the patriarchy has jacked them up to where they believe that having empathy, vulnerability, the communication skills gets coded as a feminine trait. And so there's nothing that society as a whole can do. They have to just start teaching these men to have some emotional intelligence, because it does require emotional intelligence to be able to go into these learning fields. Anyways, I thought that this article was interesting in the way it's just kind of like society needs to fix things. Society is not the issue. Society is the patriarchy that's the issue that's keeping these dudes out. and discrimination that has been baked into this cake of America since forever. Y'all let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.